Thank you for your insight.
Hey Sam, thanks for being here.
Thank you.
In the sake of what you're saying about make sure we know what we're talking about, what do you mean that affirmative action, both of you, is a double-edged sword? And when you said it's better than what existed before affirmative action, I was just thinking it was all affirmative action. It just depends on what you're talking about or who you're talking about. Does this make sense?
Well, in that particular instance, like when I think about affirmative action, I think about policies that say like you have to have a certain number of people of color considered for a position or hired or accepted into your higher education institution or whatever. It's basically to say like we need to have a more diverse pool. I think like prior to that, there were no real such standards, and as such, like we found the overwhelming majority of our workforce is white and male.
Affirmative action, yeah.
Yeah. So, and what I mean by a double-edged sword, I think you're referring to like people can refer to it negatively. People like you only got that job because of your skin color or that kind of thing.
I kind of look at it more in the sense that if we have a bunch of boxes that we have to check, once we've filled those boxes, we're no longer looking at people of this race anymore. We only need this race or this race.
Yeah, so like filling quotas, so
Yep.
to speak.
Yeah.
And I think it's problematic, especially if you can only check one box. You know, people who are biracial sometimes don't have a box to check, right? And we also know that it works against certain races who may be overrepresented in a certain area. Like I just came from a conference in California, and they're talking about how there's this reverse affirmative action for Asian Americans now, because we actually have to score like 140 points higher on average on the SATs compared to white applicants, because there's so many Asians in Ivy League schools that they're only taking like the upper echelon. And so they're like, there's a lot of Asian Americans who are like, we need to get rid of affirmative action because it's working against our community, even though it's helping communities who are constantly thrown under the bus. So it's like, well, how do we move forward? How do we actually advance equality in our country without leaving some people behind? That's the really difficult conversation to have. And I'm not sure we have a solution.